Overnight, Ukraine launched a drone attack on an oil facility, sparking a major fire, according to Russian officials.
4:10 a.m., October 6th, 2025. The silence of the night over western Russia shattered in an instant. A massive explosion ripped through the Bryansk region.
Another strike hit southwestern Russia, wounding several people.
As Ukrainian drones launched one of the most devastating strikes of the war. Within seconds, the sky turned orange, glowing like a sunrise of fire and destruction. Russia's most secure and expensive tank base, valued at over $1 billion, was engulfed in flames. The ground trembled as rows of tanks, fuel depots, and command buildings erupted one after another. In that moment, Ukraine had just rewritten the rules of warfare. Putin's pride and the backbone of Russia's armored forces were obliterated before sunrise. As news spread across Russia, panic swept through the Kremlin. Putin was reportedly awakened by urgent phone calls from his generals, his face pale with disbelief. How could this have happened? How could Ukraine penetrate deep inside Russian territory and destroy one of its most fortified bases without a single plane or missile launch?
These strikes were exchanged on the heels of one of the deadliest attacks in Ukraine.
The Bryansk tank depot was supposed to be untouchable, protected by multiple layers of air defense systems, including S-400s, Panzers, and advanced radar networks. Yet in less than 20 minutes, it was reduced to smoldering ruins. For Moscow, it wasn't just a loss, it was humiliation. According to Ukrainian defense sources, this was not a random attack, but a carefully planned operation known as Thunderclaw. The mission began hours earlier under total radio silence. Dozens of drones took off from secret launch points, flying low and slow to stay invisible to radar. They were small, silent, and deadly. Using AI navigation, terrain mapping, and satellite coordination, they slipped through Russian defenses unnoticed. The first wave targeted fuel depots, the second wave struck the ammunition storage bunkers, the third and final wave hit the command center, causing secondary explosions that tore through the entire base. The fireball that followed was so huge, it was visible from more than 50 kilometers away. Eyewitnesses in nearby villages described the moment as apocalyptic. Windows shattered, alarms blared, and fire rained down from the sky. Videos uploaded to Telegram showed massive flames lighting up the horizon. Russian emergency services rushed to the scene, but could do little. The explosions were continuous, lasting for hours, as ammunition and fuel tanks kept detonating. By dawn, nothing remained but twisted metal and thick black smoke. Satellite images taken later confirmed what everyone already feared. The entire Bryansk armored division was gone. Military analysts called it one of the costliest single strikes in Russian history. At least 250 tanks and armored vehicles were destroyed, including dozens of T-90Ms and the ultra-expensive T-14 Armata, the pride of Russia's ground forces. Each Armata tank costs nearly $8 million. Add the destroyed fuel reserves, command systems, radar units, and infrastructure, and the estimated loss exceeded $1 billion. Russia's war machine had suffered a wound it could not easily recover from, and perhaps even worse for the Kremlin. This attack took place deep inside Russia, far beyond the front lines. Putin's reaction, according to Kremlin insiders, was explosive. He immediately summoned his top generals and intelligence chiefs to an emergency meeting inside his secure bunker beneath the Kremlin. Furious and confused, he demanded explanations. Some officers blamed foreign intelligence. Others accused Ukraine of using NATO satellite coordination. But one thing was clear: Russia's air defense had failed miserably. The once feared S-400 system, marketed as one of the best in the world, couldn't even stop homemade drones made from carbon fiber and cheap electronics. Putin was reportedly so enraged, he called it an act of war against the Russian state, hinting that foreign hands were behind the operation. Russian state media, as usual, tried to control the narrative. They initially reported a fuel explosion, but the truth couldn't be hidden for long. Satellite images leaked online, and local residents uploaded footage showing drones overhead seconds before the first blast. Some called it the darkest night for the Russian army. Others directly accused the Defense Ministry of corruption, suggesting that funds meant for radar upgrades were stolen, leaving the base exposed. The Kremlin quickly began censoring these reports, but by then, The story had already spread across the world. Meanwhile, in Kiev, celebrations quietly began. Though Ukraine officially maintained silence, sources close to the Ministry of Defense hinted that this operation was a demonstration of capability. President Zelensky's brief comment the next morning said it all. The night was long for some and bright for others. Across Ukrainian cities, people shared videos of the explosions with pride and relief. It was proof that even after years of war, Ukraine could still strike deep, hard, and smart. For a country fighting against overwhelming odds, it was a psychological victory as much as a military one. Western analysts described the attack as a turning point in modern warfare. Using small, cheap drones to destroy billion-dollar targets had become Ukraine's specialty. This wasn't brute force, it was digital warfare. Experts say the operation was guided by real-time intelligence, likely assisted by Western satellites. The drones were pre-programmed using AI to recognize their targets and adapt mid-flight. It's possible Ukraine used decoy drones to exhaust Russian defenses before sending in the main wave. The precision, coordination, and timing were flawless. In just a few years, Ukraine's drone program has evolved from improvised battlefield tools to a full-scale strategic weapon. The shockwaves from the Bryansk strike reached far beyond Russia. In Washington and Brussels, military officials called emergency briefings to analyze what had happened. The incident proved that traditional air defenses were no longer enough to stop the new generation of smart, autonomous drones. NATO leaders privately praised Ukraine's ingenuity. One European general remarked, "This was not just an attack, it was a warning to every military in the world." The era of drones has begun. Even in Beijing, defense analysts began studying the operation, realizing how a small swarm could cripple even the strongest military bases. Back in Russia, morale collapsed overnight. Telegram channels flooded with angry posts from soldiers and their families. Many demanded answers. How could such a disaster happen on Russian soil? Some even accused the leadership of lying about the scale of the destruction. Russian military bloggers, who questioned the official version, were silenced or arrested, but the truth continued to leak out. Dozens of soldiers were reported missing, and videos from the scene showed burnt bodies and melted vehicles. The image of Russia's powerful tank force, once used to intimidate the world, now looked like scrap metal scattered across a blackened wasteland. The financial damage alone was catastrophic, but the psychological impact was far worse. For Putin, this attack was personal. It shattered his image of control. He had spent billions building up Russia's armored divisions, showing them off in parades as proof of his military power. Now those same tanks were burning, destroyed not by American missiles, but by small Ukrainian drones. It was a symbol of how the balance of power had shifted from heavy machines to smart technology, from numbers to intelligence. By midday, Russia's Ministry of Defense promised a powerful response, threatening strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure. But analysts say Moscow has few options left. Its missile stockpiles are running low, and every retaliation only invites more sanctions. Even Russian insiders now quietly admit the country is stretched thin. Ukraine's drone industry, fueled by local engineers and Western support, continues to grow. Each new strike exposes new weaknesses in Russia's defense network, and as Ukraine improves its range and precision, no Russian base, no matter how far inland, is safe anymore. The Bryansk strike has now become a global case study in modern warfare. It showed that small nations with creativity and technology can defeat large armies with outdated doctrines. The images of burning tanks are now symbols of resistance, shared across Ukraine, celebrated in Europe, and feared in Moscow. For the Russian people, it was another painful reminder that Putin's promises of victory were illusions. For Ukraine, it was proof that courage and innovation still matter more than money or size. As the sun rose over the ashes of the Bryansk tank base, smoke continued to rise high into the sky. Fire crews battled for hours to put out the remaining flames. The once mighty compound, filled with tanks, ammunition, and pride, was now nothing but rubble. Putin's billion-dollar tank dream had turned into a billion-dollar nightmare. At 4:10 a.m. on October 6, 2025, history took a sharp turn. one that left Russia humiliated and Ukraine victorious. The world had witnessed not just a drone strike, but a moment that will be remembered as the night when technology defeated tyranny and drones rewrote the future of war forever.